We've got bye weeks, we've got injuries. It's week 11 fantasy football, and maybe you need to dig a little deep, maybe even go out on your waiver wire and find some guys you can start this week who potentially have upside and can help you take home that week 11 win. Hey, if you haven't tried Underdog Fantasy yet, now is the perfect time, because if you're a new customer and as long as Russell Wilson cooks for at least 1 yard, that's right, he only needs to go higher than half a yard on Sunday Night Football, you get that free square, that free pick'em. You can pair it with any other line or multiple lines that you like and potentially 20x your entry. And if you join Underdog Fantasy now using our promo code ENDGAME, not only are you going to get this new customer special, but you're also going to get a 100% deposit match up to $100. You can take the free money they give you, the free money Underdog gives you, put it on this Russell Wilson free square, pair it with some other lines, and potentially 20x your entry. And let's start at running back, and I think this week, Devin Singletary is once again a strong play. Last week, he exploded from basically out of nowhere, 30 carries, 150 yards, led all running backs in those categories, also scored a touchdown. If you started him last week, man, he really helped your team. I think he can help your team again here in week 11 because he draws a fantastic matchup against a Cardinals defense that is allowing the third most fantasy points to running backs. The Texans are at home this week. You got to think this is going to be a big game for this Texans offense. The way CJ Stroud is playing. Now with Kyler Murray back for Arizona, this could turn into a sneaky shootout here. Lots of fantasy points in this one. I want exposure to this game if I can get it, and I think Singletary is a great play. Now, I will say, Dameon Pierce did return to practice Friday. We're not sure if he's going to play or not, but even if he does, we got to think he's going to be limited. He's coming back from an ankle injury. He didn't practice all week until Friday. This is still going to be Singletary's backfield. He's still going to dominate the touches in this matchup at home. He can still have a fantastic week. Devin Singletary for me is inside my top 24 running backs. So if you're desperate at the RB2 position, either because of buys, injuries, or both, and you picked up Devin Singletary last week, you should feel good rolling him out this week. Now, for one of the most underrated running backs in fantasy football, Jerome Ford, I think, is a strong start this week. In the 7 games he's started since the Nick Chubb injury, I'm not going to count the game where he got hurt with that ankle injury, but in those 7 games, he scored double-digit PPR points 6 times, and in the game he didn't score double-digit PPR points, he got 9.5, so he was right on the cusp. He's also gone over 17 PPR points in 3 of those games. He's been really good this year. And over the last 2 games, he's been a volume monster. He has 37 carries over the last 2 games, 6 catches, 151 rushing yards, 35 receiving yards. He's been very, very good in fantasy. The downside here is Kareem Hunt. He vultures touchdowns, which is really annoying because it's basically all Kareem Hunt does. He looks terrible, but he gets these chintzy, touchdowns and kind of hurts Jerome Ford's ceiling. But even this week in this matchup, Jerome Ford gives you an extremely high floor at the running back position. Steelers defense, 10th worst against the run. No reason to fear this defense here. Not to mention, they're going to be without Quan Alexander, one of the best linebackers in the game. That should help open things up. And the fact that the Browns are playing the rookie Dorian Thompson-Robinson means they're probably just going to lean on this run game even more. This feels like an ugly game where both teams just try to impose their will in the run game on each other. And I think Cleveland has success against this Steelers defense. And if Jerome Ford can somehow find the end zone, if it's not Kareem Hunt this week finally, not only does he give you a very high floor this week, but he also has a decent ceiling. All right, now let's move on to wide receiver. I'm going to talk about a Packers wide receiver. No, not Christian Watson, and no, not Romeo Doubs either. I'm going to talk about Jayden Reed, who had a nice game in week 10 and has really had a nice rookie season, even though he hasn't really gotten a lot of hype. Sure, he's had some games, some moments here and there, but people aren't really looking at him as one of these guys that's had a good season, even though he has. And when you look at this Packers passing game, you got to at least be a little bit encouraged by what you've seen from Jordan Love the last 2 games. He at least has looked better, at least has looked good enough. Not like he looked in that stretch there where he looked terrible. And now the Packers get a fantastic matchup back at home against the Chargers secondary, allowing the 5th most points to wide receivers. Every game the Chargers seem to play in this year, except maybe against the Jets, seems to turn into a high-scoring shootout. I don't see why this will be any different. I think there's going to be a lot of points in this game, a lot of passing in this game, and Jayden Reed, honestly, might be the best receiver on the Packers right now, and that's not even an exaggeration. Christian Watson hasn't been very good. Romeo Doubs, more just kind of like a possession guy. Jayden Reed has big playability. He's scored touchdowns, so you don't have to worry about that. This is a fantastic matchup for him. And Jordan Reed is still available in 60% of fantasy leagues. So if you're desperate at wide receiver, flex type of position, and he's still out there on your waiver wire, go grab him, start him this week. I think he'll be good. Now on the other side, I'm going to suggest Jalen Guyton. I know the big name here is Quentin Johnston, the rookie. He did score last week, but when you look at this offense, Jalen Guyton is the guy who's actually filling that Josh Palmer role. A couple weeks ago, coming back from injury, he only played about 50% of the snaps, but last week played almost 80% of the snaps, had 6 targets. Johnston only had 4, scored a touchdown. I mean, they both scored a touchdown. But Guyton is a guy who's been in this offense. He knows this system. And like I said, he is the guy that fills in for Josh Palmer more. Now, this matchup here isn't as good going against the Packers. Jair Alexander is back. But the selling point here is that his quarterback is Justin Herbert. He has touchdown upside. He's going to get the targets in this game. I just talked about it. I think this game turns into a sneaky shootout as well. A lot of passing in this game, a lot of back and forth. Now, I don't like Guyton as much as Jaden Reed, but he's a guy that's really available in deep leagues. So if you're in a deeper league, say a 14, 16 team type of league, and you're really desperate, go see if Guyton is still out there. He has decent upside. He has a decent floor. The matchup isn't terrible. Jalen Guyton can at least be a streaming option this week. Now on to quarterback, and it's kind of weird to say Trevor Lawrence is a streaming option or a sneaky start this week, but I think that's where he's at right now. Most sites, most rankers I look at have him ranked well outside the top 12, but this is an absolute get-right spot for Trevor Lawrence. Sure, he hasn't been great this year, but getting a home matchup against the Tennessee Titans could be just what he needs to get this ship righted. Last week, Baker Mayfield, 278 yards, 2 touchdowns, finished as a QB 10. I think Trevor Lawrence can do something similar to that, have a top 10 finish this week. And while this Titans run defense isn't quite as elite as it was earlier in the year, and they're not quite as much of a pass funnel as they were early in the year, this is still a secondary you can absolutely exploit. You got to think the Jaguars, coming off that brutal loss last week in this home matchup, are going to come out. They're going to be ready. They're going to be better. I think we see Trevor Lawrence get to that 280, 300-yard mark, throw a couple touchdowns, and have a top 10 finish this week in this matchup. So if you're streaming quarterback, maybe there's not much on your waiver wire. Maybe somebody dropped Trevor Lawrence because they were fed up. Grab him, start him. Think he's going to come through in week 11. Now, I talked about Russell Wilson earlier with the new customer special. I think he can cook for at least more than half a yard, but I think he can actually cook for a pretty big game this week. He gets a great matchup at home against the Minnesota Vikings. They're giving up the 10th most points to quarterbacks. When you look at Russell Wilson, it's kind of strange. Like, he doesn't put up much yardage, but he still has good fantasy games week after week because he has the highest touchdown rate of his entire career. No reason to think that should change here in this matchup at home. But what I really like about Russell Wilson, at least recently, over the last 4 games, he's run for at least 21 yards in every game, so he's giving you that rushing ability. But he's also run for over 30 yards in 3 of those games, so you're at least getting that running ability. It seems like when they get near the goal line, they choose to throw the ball more than run the ball, so he always has chance for touchdown upside. So if you need a quarterback this week, or if you grabbed him, you should feel pretty good about him in week 11. Now at tight end, I think you should also feel good about David Njoku. I know a lot of people are nervous about David Njoku. Deshaun Watson going to miss the season. They announced it's going to be the rookie, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I get it. That's bad for the offense, but I don't think it's bad for David Njoku. If you look at the last time Thompson-Robinson started, David Njoku led the team with 7 targets, had 6 catches, and had 46 yards. Now that's not a huge game, but you're going to take 10 plus PPR points at the tight end position almost every week, especially when you're talking about a streaming option. And he gets a great matchup this week against the Steelers. Now, when you look at it just on paper, fantasy points against, it doesn't look that good. But again, I talked about it. Quan Alexander, one of the best linebackers in the NFL, is out. He's on IR. Not only is he one of the best linebackers in the NFL, he's one of the best cover linebackers in the NFL. It's one of the big reasons why tight ends haven't had much success. With him out, I think that's going to open things up for Njoku, and we know he's going to be Thompson-Robinson's safety blanket. He gets the easier throws, the over-the-middle throws, the throws that aren't very far down the field. Now, Njoku doesn't have massive upside this week because is he going to score a touchdown? Maybe, maybe not. I would have to bet on no. But again, if you're looking for a high floor play in your PPR leagues at tight end, go look and see if David Njoku is still out there. Or if you picked him up to stream him and now you're nervous about him because it's not Watson, I'm going to tell you it's going to be okay. Just go ahead and start him. I think he still has a good game. Now, if you want to take on more risk for more upside, I'm going to suggest Logan Thomas this week. Now, when you look at it, the Giants, not a great matchup on paper, but I mean, are we really scared of the Giants defense in Washington? I am certainly not. But what you got to like about Logan Thomas is he's had 5 or more targets in 4 straight games, and he's also a threat near the goal line. He has 5 targets inside the 10-yard line this year, which is behind only 5 tight ends. And we're talking about guys like TJ Hawkinson, Mark Andrews, Jake Ferguson, Travis Kelce, and then somehow Donald Parham Jr. But the point is, he gets targeted at a high rate for a tight end when they get near the goal line. And this offense with Eric Bieniemy has just decided, we're just going to throw the ball. It doesn't matter what the game script is. It doesn't matter if it's close. It doesn't matter if they're ahead, they're losing, whatever. They're going to just throw the ball. There's going to be opportunity for Logan Thomas. Now, I don't think he has as high of a floor as David Njoku. He could certainly go out there and only get 2 or 3 catches and not really help your team very much. But he also has way more touchdown upside than David Njoku in this matchup. So if you're looking for more upside at the tight end position, looking for that touchdown upside, I think Logan Thomas is a good bet. Now, if you're looking for everything you need to win your Week 11 matchup, we got you covered. Check out our Week 11 playlist right here. Everything you need in one playlist.